Hello my crafty friends, this is Monica from Allsewpetite. In this tutorial you will learn how to make your own piping. Piping is essentially a strip of fabric. Usually it would be cut on bias, so it gives you a little bit of give and stretch, especially if you are sewing around curves, with some sort of a rope or a cord inserted inside. And on a ready-made piping you will find a stitching line running very close to the edge of the cord. So the quickest way to make a piping is to buy a ready-made bias tape, just like this one, unfold the edges, then you would take the rope or a cord, insert it, and wrap the bias tape around it. Then you would take this to the machine and stitch as close to that cord as you can get. But what if you cannot find the right color of the bias tape or a thickness of ready-made piping that you need for your project? In that case, the easiest way is to make your own piping. To make your own piping, you would need a fabric of your choice. Majority of times you will find a cotton, blend, synthetic or satin type of piping available in the shop. As a bag maker, I am often asked, can I use cork or vinyl to make my own piping? And the answer is absolutely. I would just double check if your machine can sew through all the layers of the project plus the piping. Once you pick your fabric, then you will also need a cord. You will find a variety of sizes on the market. I usually use those 3 types in my project, so the size of them varies from 2 to 3 millimeters to about 12-18 millimeters. So to make your own piping, we know that we have to cut strips of fabric. But to find out how wide is that strip, what I like to do is to take my cord and the fabric that you are cutting the strips from, and normally I would wrap the fabric around that cord, use a couple of pins to just pin the fabric as close to the cording as I can. Then I can take my ruler and I would mark a 1 centimeter seam allowance. Just like that. So now I know exactly how wide the strip of fabric has to be for the size of my cord, plus the seam allowance that I'm going to use in the project. So let's go ahead and cut our strips. The first step is to find a 45-degree angle on your fabric. So how would you do it? If you have protractor or a ruler with those angled lines here, you can use it. So you would find the selvage of your fabric. So that's the edge that is nicely finished on each side of your bolt, and then you would have 2 raw edges where the fabric was cut in the shop. So you're going to take your ruler, find that 45 degrees line. You can put that line against the selvage, and then you can just draw a line. So this way I know that this is a 45 degrees angle, and I can start cutting my strips of fabric from here. If you don't have a ruler like this, cut a line at the 19 degrees angle, so it's a straight corner here. Then grab the top corner and bring it towards the bottom. And line up those 2 edges here. And this way you will create a triangle, and that folded edge here is the 45 degrees angle. If you are using scissors to cut your fabric, you will have to draw lines that are the width of your strips. So for me, it's 3 centimeters. So I would take my ruler and just draw 3 centimeters line. Then you can just cut them out. If you have a rotary cutter and healing mat, you don't have to worry about drawing those lines. So you can speed up the process by cutting your fabric straight away. So you would place your ruler along the 45 degrees angle here and just cut it in one go. Do you always have to cut the fabric on bias? No, you don't. If the seam that you're going to sew your piping doesn't have rounded edges and it's just a straight edge, you don't have to cut your fabric on bias. Instead, you can just cut it horizontally or vertically. This way you waste less fabric and you don't have to worry about joining smaller pieces together. I'm usually using this method of cutting horizontal or vertical strips when I'm working with my cork, vinyl or faux leather fabric, because those fabrics don't typically have much give on the bias anyway, and I can save so much fabric this way. You've got all your strips. What next? You're going to have to join those strips together to create one long strip. To do that, you're going to take two strips and we're going to join them at the 90 degrees angle. So you can place one strip and with right sides together, you're going to place the other strip at 90 degrees angle. You can use a couple of pins to just pin that in place if you want. Then you're going to take your ruler and a marking tool and we're going to draw a stitching line. So where both strips are intersecting here and here, we're going to make a line from this corner to this corner. This way we know exactly where to stitch our strips. Once you've got that stitched, trim that excess fabric here. Then we're going to open the seam allowance and you can just use your fingers to press the seam flat, just like that. And this way we have a nice long strip. Trim that little excess as well. Then you just continue working and adding additional strips of fabric to make the strip as long as you need. When you're working with cord like this, the ends tend to fray quite quickly and unravel. So what I like to do is to take a masking tape or a sellotape, wrap around, and I'm going to cut through the sellotape. This way I don't have to worry about the rope unraveling. And we're going to place the rope on the wrong side of the fabric, just in the center, just like that. And we're going to fold the fabric in half. You need to line up those edges here. Then if you want, you can just use pins or clips to keep that in place. Once you've got that ready, you will take this to the machine and you will stitch close to that cord. So normally you would use a zipper foot to get as close to the cord as possible. However, to give yourself a room for an error, I would recommend stitching slightly away from that cord, about 2-3 millimeters away. So I would say stitch halfway through your seam allowance. And just like that, you made your piping. So now go ahead and complete your project.